Yeah, this training, I was introduced to this back in 1986. Was a trainer for the Home Mission Board before it became the North American Mission Board. Traveled all over the country providing trainers. 1988, I went to the International Mission Board, and within a year, one of the first meetings I sat in, missionaries around the world kept saying, you know, the one great need that we have is how do we really need help in supervising, because we get new missionaries that are just fresh from the States. We get short-termers that come and join us for 1 or 2 years, and then we get all these volunteer teams, and we don't know what to do with them. And and everybody just kind of sat there looking at each other, and I looked around the room, and I finally said, well, I got something in the work. And this, what you're about to see, was introduced and started here at Golden Gate in 1981 in our what was called supervised ministry in the old days. Now it's called theological field education. That's what the TFE stands for. And so spent 15 years at the International Mission Board again, and ended up traveling all over the world teaching our missionaries how to take care of the people who were put under their care. Now there's a lot of material out there, but the rub comes when you have that, whether it's a staff member, an intern, a group of summer missionaries here for a week, whatever it is, whatever group it is standing in front of you, what do I do with them? How do I get them engaged? And so I'm gonna give you the quick version, and then I want to point you to some longer sets of videos that if you want to go deeper into this and really look at the nuance of what's going, you have access to that, because that's all on our website under the TFE area. So we'll take a look at this. What's the first thing that comes into your mind when you even hear that word supervision? What do you think? Go ahead.
They want to know how you're doing your job.
Yeah, how do you do it? How do you do it? What else? What's the first thing that comes into your mind? I said those words, supervision. What is it?
Overseeing. Overseeing.
Overseeing.
Boss.
The boss.
Boss. Yeah, boss. And that's usually not a kind thought sometimes, you know.
Someone that sees details further out.
Yeah. Can Mike see out there? I mean, that's what that overseer idea is, somebody who's got the big picture. We seldom hear, what we seldom think about is an opportunity to minister. So I'm the pastor, and I've got this new youth minister, and he's supposed to take care of the kids. And so I'm thinking about him and her and that ministry. I need to pull back a step and say, no, I don't need to think about that ministry. I need to think about this ministry. And see, I need to think about the fact that I get to pour into this person as that ministry. That's really what I'm looking for, is to say, how do I minister here? I'm not even thinking about the bigger picture. I need to focus here, because that person, see, if I didn't have this person doing this, I'd have to carve out more time out of my schedule to go take care of the youth. But because I have them now, I don't have to do that. I have to focus my attention here. And so that's why adding more people, we get busy, but we have to make certain that we're treating them the right way. Supervision is going to happen. The question is not whether you'll be engaged in supervision in the church, but whether we'll be committed to excellence in this aspect of ministry. So when you hear the word supervision, I want you to think ministry from now on, and an opportunity to pour into somebody who's going to in turn help somebody else, make something else in some other aspect of the ministry work for us. There are 6 sides of this that I want you to think about when we talk about supervision, and you're going to engage your people in all 6 of these areas. One of them is going to be administrative. You know, that's accountability and evaluation. How you doing? Are they getting their job done? You know, and so you have to kind of keep an eye on that kind of stuff. But there's also an education involved, because there's going to be new things for that person to learn. There's new things that they may not be exposed to yet, and you're going to train them, and you're going to help them and encourage them. There's also a professional side to this. if they're on your, let's say it's on a brand new staff member on your church, and this is, maybe they've just graduated out of seminary, or they've just finished advanced, and they're now, you know, whether it's paid or part-time, that or volunteer, it doesn't matter. They now have to understand there's a ministry identity in my role and what I'm doing, if it's within the confines of the church. And so they have to start understanding the ministry identity. What does it mean for me to be the minister? I remember and when I was a sophomore in college, or right before I was a sophomore, the summer between my sophomore and freshman year, one of my professors says, "Are you doing anything this weekend?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Would you like to preach out at one of the little churches right outside of town?" And I said, "Sure." So I went out there and I preached that Sunday. And so one of the deacons came to me after the service and said, "Are you available next Sunday?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm available next Sunday." They said, "Well, we'd like you to come and preach in view of a call to become our pastor." I was a freshman in college. And so I came back the next week, I preached. They said, "Go out in the parking lot, we're going to have a business meeting." I went out in the parking lot. About 15 minutes later, one of them come out and says, "Hey, we just voted to extend a call to you to become our next pastor. Can you let us know by Tuesday?" I said, "Okay, I think I probably can let you know." And so I did. And so now I'm getting ready for week number 3. On Thursday night of that week before my third Sunday, the chairman of the deacon's wife calls and she says, "Pastor." Just saying that out loud, I was going, I was hyperventilating on the phone. You know, there's no text, there's no email back in those days, you know. And she says, "Oh, by the way, we have the Lord's Supper scheduled on Sunday. Should we keep it or postpone it?" Without thinking, I said, "Keep it." I got off the phone and said, "Oh no, what was I thinking? I mean, I've taken the Lord's Supper hundreds of times, but I've never been on that side of the table. What do I do?" I found a couple of my professors and they gave me a crash course on how to do the Lord's Supper, you know, and I ended up spending a year, and I'll tell people, and now on the resume, it looks like I was the pastor. I said, no, they pastored me. They pastored me. And so the reality is, we get into ministry, there's always something new to learn. And when you're in ministry, wow, boundaries. If you're married, you have children. With children, you understand boundaries. You know, when they're little and you got to put locks on the, you know, stairs and keep cabinets closed and put things up high so they can't get into them until they get old enough to know, don't do that. And so we understand boundaries. We teach the little ones from early on. There's an emotional side of this. You're in ministry. You are taking on the weight of when they come and they pour their heart out to you and they cry their eyes out and they're upset about this, or they're dealing with that, or you've got somebody and you've got a marital split coming in a family. Wow, the emotional side of that care and the support that you now get to help them walk through that burden. And that's you know, a lot of the heavy lifting that we never see coming. You know, we don't talk about that often enough. But there's also, see, this stuff called ministry is a people business. How many of you consider yourselves an introvert in the room? You're introverted. You would lean toward that introverted side. That's all right. And what I tell students in my class, I said, okay, introverts, you're going to have to learn to be a functional extrovert. When it's time to get up and preach, when it's time to get up and teach, you're getting up to give the announcements, you're leading in this activity, you're leading in that ministry. Oh no, you don't sit back and say, no, I don't have anything to say. No, you have to stand and deliver. You have to act as if you've been there and done that. And so all of a sudden now, this interpersonal stuff becomes real and up close. And then, wow, theological. Rightly divide the word of truth. Wow, what in the world does that mean? But we're called to do it. We're called to teach and preach this and to make certain that we handle it accurately. The word of God in my hand, if that doesn't just put shivers up and down your spine, well, you need to reconnect your spine. It's not working right, because that ought to scare you to death. See, I tell young pastors and young ministers of all men and women, I said, every time you get up to teach or preach, that ought to scare you to death. I hope you feel butterflies, just like you do in a big game before you run out on that court. I said, you felt that in sports when you were younger. You better feel that every time. Don't ever take that for granted. Don't ever assume that, oh yeah, I got that. No big deal. That is a big deal. That is our big deal. And so when we're in supervision, we're helping those young ones start to understand that, start to get a handle on that. Well, supervision in the church. So let me show you what happens. Most pastors and ministry leaders tend to avoid supervised relationships. They don't really want to deal with it. They don't. And most pastors' relational groups, and when I talk about relational group, I'm talking about staff or committees or elders or deacons or boards, they're inclined to avoid supervisory responsibilities too. They normally wait for the problem to occur, for everything to blow up. Uh-oh, now we got to deal with it. What are we going to do now? We have a problem. So they normally are forced into it. They don't have any choice now. They've got to deal with it. So when pastors, ministry leaders, and pastor relation groups do exercise supervision, it's usually done within a secular or business mindset and methodology. Because here's what happens. The pastor is sitting there with his elders, trustees, board, deacon, whatever group he's with, and he says, we have a problem with the youth minister. What are we going to do? And let's start looking around the room, and everybody starts kind of, thinking through that. And finally, one of the business guys will say, well, here's what we do at my office. Here's how we deal with it there. And normally we do it with this secular business mindset because it comes from a layman that has had to do it on the work. And so he thought, well, I've never done this at church, but we do it at where I work. And so they start to deal with it. And I'm here to tell you to say, hey, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity now, because this is ministry, to also minister out of this at the same time. So here are just some basic principles. You're going to understand and agree with every one of these. All persons are of value. Amen. We understand that? We understand. Leaders must be servants. What did Jesus say? You want to be first of all? Get to the back of the line. You be the servant of all if you want to be the leader of this outfit. Leaders must equip others to perform. Leaders must empower, encourage, enrich, enhance the kingdom. Leaders must be accountable. When you stop and think about that, see, if I'm the leader, I want you accountable to me. Well, guess how I get accountability? I've got to model it. I'm going to be accountable back to you. I want you to know I'm as accountable to you as I want you to be to me. If I say we're going to have a meeting next Thursday at 10 o'clock, guess where I should be at Thursday at 10 o'clock? I better be where I told him I was going to be, so that he trusts me. And we're going to be accountable, and this is going to be give and take. It's going to come back, and he's going to know that I'm good for my word. Maybe I better be good for mine. And it works both ways, and we start to understand that. Japanese proverb: if he works for you, you work for him. Everybody you understand that? This is a two-way street. How many of you have had a boss that was only a one-way street? Yeah, that wasn't fun, was it? No, they didn't care about you. As long as you did your job, and we've got too many people out there, they're just cracking a whip and, saying, hey, do it when I say do it, But hey, I think this proverb really kind of speaks to the fact that, hey, we're in this together. We're in this together. And I promise you, if he knows I'm pulling for him, guess what he's going to do? He's going to pull hard for me.
fair to say, if I work for him.
That's exactly where that's, we know where that comes from. We know what that means. Absolutely. Well, there's an art and the science of the supervision stuff. There are some of you who are going to be good at it naturally. You get a new person on your team, at your church, in your department, whatever it is you've got. Some of you can just naturally say, hey, glad you're with us. Here's what your job is. This is your part of the organization. Here's what you do. Whatever I need to do to help you, I will encourage you. I want to support you. But some of us, some of us may not think that way. And so, hey, there's a scientific side. How many of you ever heard somebody who plays the piano by ear?
Yeah.
What's your first thought about somebody who plays the piano by ear?
Super envious.
You're super envious. That's not fair. That's too easy for them. How many of you took piano lessons as a child? Grew up taking piano lessons. And how many of you still aren't that good? A few of you. So, I'll give you a little test. What do you call somebody who speaks 3 languages or more? Tri or multilingual. Okay. What do you call them if they speak 2 languages? Bilingual. What do you call them if they speak 1 language? American. That's right. That's exactly right.
Or British.
Yeah. So some of you from other cultures, how many languages do y'all speak? How many languages? 2, 3. See, I knew we would get some multi, And you know why we don't? We've nearly forced you to speak ours.
Yeah.
I've forced you onto my side. And it's not necessarily fair. Now, when we get around the world, when I was at the IMB, teaching English was a forte. We could get it in just about any country as an English teacher. Because the world wants to learn to speak English, because English is more than language. Because America represents freedom, in America, wealth. It represents lots of other things that we associate. And so I just say that to say, hey, listen, we can learn. Now, some of you it's going to come natural. Some of you it's not as easy, but you will get it. You'll understand it pretty fast. Supervisory issues. I'm going to go through these pretty fast. There's always generational issues. Older versus younger and vice versa. Relational, supervising friends or acquaintances. Sometimes you get a friend or an acquaintance or a family member on your team. You better know how to take either the friend or the family hat off and say, no, I've got the supervisor hat on. You need to do your job.
That's right.
Do your job. Do what you're supposed to do. And don't come asking me for make it easier and just because we know each other. And so that becomes a tough one. So be really careful with that one. Culturally, you need to teach them how to do's and don'ts, how to do it right. Because that cuts beyond ethnic lines and other things as well. I can go from Anglo church to Anglo church to Anglo church. They all are different cultures. Because they will take on the culture of the senior pastor eventually. If he stays long enough, that's the culture, and he will help generate that. That's not always bad. Sometimes that's a very good thing. But you just have to understand it. You have to know it. Gender, men supervising women, women supervising men. Now that we live in a Me Too culture, do I have to tell you how to be careful? Right. Boy, we've got to be above board. Listen, this alone ought to say, hey, we live our life at a higher standard, right? At a different level than even what the government says or what society says is right. No, we live at a higher level than that. Right. So just know and understand. Experience. Some people have been assigned a job they've never done before. Hey, train them, help them understand, give them some chance, give them some slack because they won't do it like you do it. Okay. Leader consistency. Sometimes leaders change. That's going to happen. Micromanagement. You ever been micromanaged? You ever had somebody breathing down your neck? Okay, let's go to the other end. You ever been that lone voice crying in the wilderness? Is there anybody out there that'll help me? See, there's too much and too little. We've got to hit that happy medium. And once you help them and train them and encourage them and say, go get them, then step back far enough to let them do their job.
That's right.
Don't crowd them. Don't crowd them. Don't force that. You got to let them do. Ministry consistency. Sometimes the role changes. Hey, when it does and it's necessary, help them get up to speed with the new one. Ministry health. Sometimes they land in an unhealthy situation. Hey, give them a warning. You know, why do you think we have the guy with the metal detector out there walking in the field and the soldiers following him? He's going to make sure we know where the landmines are so we don't step out there and get ourselves in trouble. Well, the same thing happens in ministry. Somebody steps in and you better tell them. If you know where they are, tell them. Let them know. Students' health, physical, emotional, social. In this setting, hey, keep an eye on them. Keep a finger on the pulse. Know if they're doing well and if they need help and support, all that kind of good stuff. Student qualifications. Sometimes people are overqualified or underqualified. Hey, underqualified, you're going to have to train them up. You're going to have to help them. Overqualified, hey, they may have a servant's heart and they may, I mean, I sent the senior design engineer for Disney World. All of Disney World, not one of them, the whole Disney World. Faithful layman in his church, after he retired from Disney, he wasn't that old either. Well, when you work for Disney, you don't have, you know, because retirement's not about money. You know, I mean, it's not about age. Sorry, it is about money. It's not about age. You know, we think of retirement as an age thing. It's not at all. And but he was faithful and says, hey, God has called us, send us wherever we go. I'll do anything. And I mean, he could do it all. But he said, no, I'll start at the bottom. Be willing to do that. You may observe danger signals, communication issues, depression, homesick, manic behavior, provincial attitude, inappropriate behavior. Now, there's some on that list. If you see serious depression, you see manic behavior, you better, and you're not a counselor, you better be ready to refer them to, hey, you need some professional help here. But some of this, homesick, and some communications, hey, have them over to the house, put your arm around them, hug on them, love on them a little bit, feed them a home cooked meal, and help get them, you know, headed in the right direction. You can take care of some of those, just know which are which. Time management may be an issue. Let me go ahead and tell you out loud, there is no such thing. You Google time management and look for a workshop. There's plenty around. But if you go to a workshop like that, what they're going to teach you is time's not the issue. You are the issue. It's us. It's us. And that clock is not going to speed up or slow down. I have to get in step with it. I can't save any till next week. I can't borrow any from last week. It is what it is. And guess what? Everybody in the room, guess how much you got? We all got the same. We're all starting equal ground. Now, here's the big deal today, and I understand that you've already heard about this conflict stuff this week. Hey, this stuff, there's no such thing. This is alive and well, and you better learn to manage it. You better learn to navigate how to deal with conflict and do it appropriately, or it'll do you in. And then accountability, I've already talked about that. We've got to be accountable if we want accountability back to us. We have to model that. So we learn supervision from a variety of models, okay? But supervision carries baggage, okay? Each of us have memories of how we were led, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We've all can probably give an example of all three. And these memories shape how we lead others, okay? And so I want you to take a quick look at that list. I'm not going to go, and we're not going to go through every one of them, but the top two, family and marriage, I call those the trust models, okay? Look, before I get to the trust models, the family model. Barbara Bush. I didn't learn this until her funeral on television. But here's what Barbara Bush said. Home is the child's first school. The parent is the child's first teacher. And reading is the child's first subject. Where do you learn that? First grade? Kindergarten? No, you learn that at home. And so that really is, home is the child's first school. And then I'll get to my next point about family and marriage. Those two are our trust-based models. You break trust here, chances are you're going to have a hard time fixing it. Every Tuesday for the last 2 years, I drive down to Lake Elsinore. It's about 30 minutes south of here. I go to Set Free Ranch and I do Bible study every Tuesday morning. Set Free Ranch are men and women who have just come off the streets, drug, alcohol, homeless, broken relationships, broken families, broken everything. One week I got there and as I pulled in and parked my car, I saw a guy, he had just come in the gate. He's got worn out socks, no shoes. He's kind of dragging his feet. He's strung out on something. He's dragging a suitcase, no wheels left on it. It's probably everything in his world he's carrying right there with him. I saw two of the guys. Now these guys have been here a few weeks. I saw two guys drop what they're doing. One of them went and grabbed his bag, and the other one took him and took him by the arm to help him, and they got him to the office and got him checked in. I say to these guys on a pretty regular basis, most of you have broken relationships in your families that you would give anything now to restore and to heal and to be mended and to be reunited. I said, some of you, we will pray that all that happens for all of you, but for some of you, you know it's not going to happen. You know there is no going home anymore. But there is, in Christ, a way to move forward. And so we talk about that. And so those trust models, boy, when we break them, parent and child, if you've got an issue with a child or you have a parent that you've had a broken relationship with, it's awful hard to fix those. It's awful hard. Husband and wife, if a husband or a wife has been unfaithful to the other one and that relationship gets broken, sometimes it's not fixable. And so I can't tell you how important the trust is on those levels. We talk about love and we talk about nurture and we talk trust. Trust is the big deal of the day in those relationships. When I started going in and out of San Quentin, 11 years on a regular basis going into San Quentin, I realized I'm not in control anymore. When that big gate swings behind you, you do what the guard tells you to do, and you do it when he tells you to do it. You don't move when he says don't move, and you move when he says move. And you realize that the control piece is over. Military model, I grew up in this one in my family, that I learned early on, you don't question authority. My dad was in the military. That was when he gave the orders of the day, I followed him. Or I paid the consequence. And I learned not to pay that consequence. I didn't like the consequence. So I followed that model and I didn't question it, you know. Now, before we want to throw that one away and say, well, I don't like that model. Well, be careful. There may come a day and time when you've got to pull rank and you've got to look somebody right in the eye and say, that behavior isn't going to cut it. See, I can look at my son and I can tell him, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard anybody do. I can't believe you were so boneheaded, and I can just ream him out for something he's done. Or I can say, son, you are my son. I love you. I care for you. This behavior is not going to be tolerated. You see the difference? I'm not beating him up now. I'm beating on this behavior and say that can change and you must change it. My son can probably tell you the chapter and verse and day and time. When I looked him right in the eye and I said, you will not talk to my wife that way. I did not say you will not talk to your mother that way. I said, you will not talk to my wife that way. Because I wanted to teach not only a lesson for that day, but I wanted a lesson for the day he has a wife and he has children and they're smart talking back to their mom so that he understands how this thing works. And make it clear. Don't pull any punches here. We got to be really, really, really careful. The academic model. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but I promise you, I don't care how well prepared I am. I don't care how well I know this material. I don't care that I've been doing this since 1986. If you don't want it, I ain't giving it. I throw it out here all day and you ain't receptive. See, the readiness is out here. It's not right up here. And some of you have even been in a class that was so boring and so dull and so, when is this ever going to be over? But you're there because you want it and you need it. As painful as the delivery is, I still need this information. I still need this to help me to get where I need to go. So we have to keep working on that. One of our doctor friends from the mission field said in medical school, they taught him, see one, do one, teach one. See one, do one, teach one. Hey, that'll work in evangelism. You know, hey, Jesse, come with me. We're going to go down to Starbucks. I got this friend. I'm going to chat. All you have to do is watch. See one, see one, see one. After about the third or fourth see one, I said, are you ready to do one? I'll go with you if you want me to, or you can do it on your own. And now he does one, and he does one, and he does one. And we debrief it. And I said, you got the hang of this? He says, yeah, I got the hang of this. I said, now go teach one. You get somebody else and take somebody else with you. And you go see one, do one, teach one. Do you realize we sit in this room? Think about this for a moment. Think about this for a moment. Jesus has died on the cross. He was buried. He rose from the dead, 40 days. And they tell us that there was approximately 120 left in the church at that point. 120. That's a guess, but we have some biblical scripture to back that up. And he says, now you guys get to that upper room in Jerusalem and you just wait. Did they know what they were waiting for? I don't think so. See, what he had told them, he says, hey, disciples, I can't be with you too much longer. I've got to go from here. And Thomas said, well, how will we know where you're going? We don't know the way. He says, you know the way because you know me, because I am the way. I'm the truth. I'm the life. So I've got to go. I'm leaving. But you know me, you know the way. I'm leaving. He gets to the Great Commission in Matthew. What's he say? And lo, I'm with you. Well, wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. You said you were leaving. And now you said you're going to be with us always. So which is it? And the answer is yes. I am leaving. And I am going to be with you. And it wasn't until the coming of the Holy Spirit at Pentecost did they understand what I'm going to be with you always means. See, we have that always already worked in. So that see one, do one, teach one, you make that fit a discipleship model. You can do that in lots of things. Any kind of training, see one, do one, now teach one. Okay. These others, they're important. The orchestra. You're my orchestra. I'm the conductor. You're warming up. It's noise. It's banging. It's clanging. It's hot, horrible. You've been to a concert when they're warming up, but everybody's quiet. That baton comes up. when it comes down this time and everybody's on the same page, they're on the same note, they're together, it makes all the difference in the world. It's incredible to what happens at that point. But you know about me? Which instrument do I have to know how to play out here? I don't have to know how to play any of them. That's why I have you. That's why I have you on the team. Because I'm going to let you do your job. Mine's up here to keep everybody in sync. Everybody else is going to do their job. One person doesn't have to do it all. And we got some churches that ain't figured that out yet. And so they got a congregation of folks sitting out there as spectators because this pastor says, you know, kind of at first kind of comes across like, I know it all, I do it all, you know, and guess what? There'll be a bunch of people that'll agree and say, yeah, you can do it all. Don't ask me to come out to visit anybody. Don't ask me to be involved in that ministry. No, you can do it all, pastor. You can do it yourself. You know, and if you don't create that mindset to say, hey, we're in this together. That's right. See, when we gather for worship, there's only one spectator. That's right. There's only one. And he's not sitting in any chairs here. He's looking down on us. I'm not sure why God always looks down. You know, and heaven's always up. And you know, where's always down. Right. I digress. So you read the New Testament, you read the Gospels. I promise you I can show you a story about every one of those in there about Jesus. And you're wondering about that one probably. You probably get stuck on that one. Can you imagine that day where we're disciples? Maybe you and me are back of the 12. We're following along, we're going to Jerusalem, and we're whispering to each other saying, what's that? What's the whip for? What's the whip for? And we're heading to the temple. You read that passage real carefully, you realize Jesus didn't use that whip on animal or person. I think it was I'm going to get your attention. Turned over a few tables, a little bit of money and flying, some doves flying away, some goats and lambs and other animals going crazy. And most of the adversarial relationships that Jesus had were with religious officials, people like you and me. That's who he had trouble with. He didn't have trouble with the sinners and the publicans and the prostitutes. Those folks he got along fine with. So I want you to consider Jesus used a variety of these models as he modeled the Christian life for us during those 3 years of time together. I kind of equate that to the disciples MDiv program. And they spend that time together. Well, hardly anybody does MDiv in 3 years anymore. We're in a new age, so to speak. Supervision. I've talked about it here for nearly 40 minutes. Effective ministry supervision is the development and use of a relational system which provides both feedback and support designed to enhance spiritual and personal growth and assist in ministry development. Now that's a lot of words, but in the whole process, in the videos I'm going to tell you where to find those, you'll be able to see that unpacked completely and really get a feel for what we mean when we talk about supervision. Because we're talking very specific. It's relational. We need to have a relationship. You're going to get to know me. I'm going to get to know you. It's going to provide feedback. I'm going to let you know how you're doing. You're going to have questions back. I'm going to try to respond to those, back and forth feedback. And I'm going to support you. I'm going to do everything I can to help you so that we're going to enhance your spiritual. Hey, listen, I hope you grow spiritually. Spiritual formation should always be in the mix. Personal growth. I hope after you serve in this way that you're a better person. Just in general, you're a better person and you care for people and to assist. And finally, yeah, hey, we want that ministry to grow. We want that youth ministry, let's double it, triple it, whatever it happens to be. Well, there's two poles of supervision. One side, the task That's all the knowledge and the skill and the guidance and the evaluation and the debriefing. This is what you do, how you do it, and how we evaluate it. And then let's follow up and let's talk about what does all that mean. Okay, that's only one half, and we got to. What are we going to balance that with? Well, we got to balance that with your personal spiritual formation, your character formation. Hey, character counts. You know that word that the world calls us, because our character doesn't match. We're going to talk more about that a little bit later, when the stuff we say doesn't match the stuff we do. Okay, we'll talk about that more later. Relational formation, ministry identity, theological reflection. We're going to talk more about that one too. But though there's a balance that's required, and we have to balance this out. Well, guess what? Most of the time, you get a new youth pastor, you're wanting the ministry side taken care of. You got a new youth pastor, and he wants to do the youth ministry. So he's got this. Here's where we have to spend most of our time. We nearly leave that one alone because that was going to take care of itself. This is the one that the real ministry is going to grow because of what happens over here. And it's the idea. This is the doing stuff. The doing stuff. This is the being stuff. And let me say to you, I've said it to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of missionaries over my lifetime. I'll say it to you. God does not care what you do. He doesn't care what you do. God cares who you are. And the do stuff is going to flow out of that being. If you are the person God has called you to be, then you will do the things God wants you to do. But it's not the other way around. You can't force the being to come shape because of what you do. It doesn't work that way. So this personhood stuff, being, the task stuff is the doing. Keep that straight. Yes or no? What? Nobody? Nobody? Why? Why?
It's not mine.
It's not mine. That's exactly right. That's the answer. It's not mine. I don't wax a rental car. How silly. My son, 15 and a half, we're in Virginia. He gets to 15 and a half, he can get his permit. And he can drive with a licensed driver over 21. And in that 6 months, if he takes driver's education and passes that during that same time period, when he turns 16, they will hand him a license. Okay? Well, he had a job. We were taking him back and forth to work, and he comes in one day and says, "Hey, Dad and Mom, I was just thinking, I appreciate y'all taking me back and forth to work and taking me to soccer practice and everything else. But if we had a third car, well, he didn't know. His mom and I had already been talking about that. And I went to my insurance guy and I said, what's the best deal? Under 25 single male, that's the highest insurance you're going to pay in life. And he says, well, that little two-door Ford thing that you drive back and forth to work, that'll be the lowest insurance we can have. And I said, okay, it's his. And I'm going to get me something else. Okay? So I took the car keys out and I handed them to him. I handed him the car keys, and that day he washed it, he waxed it, he cleaned it out. He got it looking as good as he could make it look. Why? It was his. You see, that makes all the difference. People that come to work with you and under your watch, you have to help them own the ministry that they're stepping into. And if they don't own it, they'll treat it like they don't own it.
That's good.
They're not going to take care of it. They won't care. But if you put it in their hands and say, this is yours, this is yours, then, well, people are going to take care of what they own. They're going to support what they help create. So how do you create this ownership for those who minister both with and for you? How are you going to do it? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because whether you have it on paper or not, and you should have these on paper, I hope that for any of if you're hiring in the church or volunteer ministry leaders, you should have a job description. Now, it doesn't have to be big and elaborate and something fancy. No, it could just list, here's the 10 things that this job needs to accomplish. Be something simple. You hand that to them. Well, who created that? I did. This isn't theirs, this is mine. So how do I get them to have ownership? Well, let's look at Alice. One day Alice came to a fork in the road and saw a Cheshire cat in a tree. Which road do I take, she asked. Well, where do you want to go? Was his response. Well, she said, I don't know, Alice responded. Then said the cat, well, it doesn't matter. You don't know where you want to go. You're going to go take either one. It doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter to you yet. And so, see, that's not, we don't want that. We don't want that. We are going to help them create a covenant because the covenant youth ministry, we want to disciple these youth. We want to add evangelism to it. And we want to double these youth. And we want to minister to their families. And we want to do this and this and this for this youth ministry to grow. When a TFE student writes a covenant, and I tell them you got to write ministry goals, personal, spiritual, and evangelism. When it comes to any of those goals, and they say, I want my youth ministry to double. Okay, so the need is that you got a small youth group and you want it to grow. That's your need. So I don't want a goal of how to reach more youth. I want a goal about what needs to change in you to reach more youth. See, I want the change right here. I don't want the change in that ministry. The change has to be here. And so when this covenant is developed, it's putting a document in place that is, you are on, your blood, sweat, and tears are on the page of that document. And the item is just going to include, well, you're going to include a description of the ministry. Hey, I'm the youth minister. I'm going to reach the kids. I'm working with our junior high and high school kids. And so the needs, we want to grow. We want to be discipled. We want to do this. We want to go missions. We want to, okay, you got all those needs. Then what goals, what needs to change in me to accomplish that? See, I don't want to go over there. I want to go right here. The goal this is what's, if I don't change anything here, well, hey, listen, the wind's blowing this way. I'm going to do this program. That's what Lifeway said. Oh, the wind changed. Oh, we're going to do that one. That's what Saddleback said. Oh, the wind's going in a different direction. Oh, I'm going to do it this because this came out from, see, you can be blown all over the place. No, what did you need? What does the person you're supervising, what do they need? Ministry-wise, personal-wise? Hey, and ask them, say, hey, listen, just put one personal goal on there and you're giving me permission to hold you accountable for it. What does it mean? What does it mean? Spiritual? How do you need to grow spiritually? What's a need in your life, spiritual, that you need? Evangelism. You know what our big deal of the day in ministry is for evangelism? We get busy in ministry. I got a committee. I've got a group. I've got to lead worship. I've got to teach. I've got to preach. I'm busy. And I'm not taking any time to go out the door and meet somebody. And yet all of a sudden it dawns on me, I stop by that same little place to fill up with my tank with gas, and I go in and get a cup of coffee, and I see that same guy behind the counter every week. Hey, what's your name? I see you every week. My name's Glenn. Hi, Bob. Good to meet you. Hi, Bob. Next week. Hey, Bob, how you doing? Good to see you. Hey, Bob, you're going to watch the football game this weekend? You start to build and develop that relationship. And so in TFE, they have an assignment in the fall. I want you to go meet 3 people not involved in your ministry that you did not know on the first day of class. Meet 3 people. All you got to do is get their first name, and let them make sure they know your name and they know who you are. They know you're a student at this school. That's all they have to do. They don't have to go to Jesus. They don't have to get to evangelism. They don't have to do it. Just meet them. Just develop a relationship. Get to know them. And then by the end of the second semester, no, they've got to share the gospel with somebody. Now, I said it doesn't have to be one of those three, but I want you to realize that we can get so busy in life that we forget how to establish new relationships. So whatever the evangelism need. Now, we got some folks, evangelism is their spiritual gift. Most of them, you just got to get out of their way. Don't get in their way. Don't hinder what they're doing. And then every goal is going to have, whatever kind of goal it is going to have a set of action plans to say, here's how we do it. 1, 2, 3, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then afterward, you need to be able to evaluate it, because how do you know you accomplished what you said you were going to do? Okay, we're going to go to Chicago. Okay, we're going to walk to Chicago. And we finally think we're about there, and we get up to the road sign that says, welcome to Detroit. Oh, no. We made a wrong turn somewhere. You ever read 1 Timothy? You ever read 1 Timothy? It's got this little map in it. And it says, 2 Timothy, sorry. I get my Timothy's mixed up. Paul is telling Timothy and how from infancy you've known the Holy Scriptures, which were able to make you wise for salvation through faith in Christ Jesus. All Scripture is God-breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training. Teaching. Okay, let's take a quick look at that map. We're in Ontario. We're going to Chicago. We're heading northeast. Northeast. We got to go north and we got to go east, and that's how we'll know we'll get there. So we've been taught, okay, and then we end up in Cleveland or Detroit or somewhere else, and we say, oops, wait a minute, what is that rebuking stuff? Hey, we didn't get where we were going. We didn't follow our map. So correcting. Okay, pull the map back out. Let's look at the map again. Oh, okay, I see. We made a wrong turn right there. We go back, and now we make the right turn. And now we are training to say, we won't make that mistake again. We won't make that mistake. So the Scripture provides that for us. And so how do we know we arrived? Well, how do you know you've accomplished? And we don't have to have a success over here in the youth ministry with every goal on there to glean something out of that. So you got hard and soft data. You know, a year later, we still got 10 kids in our youth group. Well, hard data says you failed. If you wanted to double in a year, that says you failed. What's the soft data say? Well, we tried that, and then we tried that, and then we tried that, and none of those worked. Okay, hey, we learned something. We ain't trying those three things again. And so sometimes we have to look beyond what just the outcome before you know, because there's more to that about evaluation. Reggie Jackson said, a good manager has the knack for making players play a little bit better than they think they can. In 2010, the San Francisco Giants won the World Series. You may have some Dodger folks in the room. Be careful. So anyway, I don't think anybody would. I think most Giant fans would agree with this. They did not have the best field and team and batting team, but they had probably the best rotation in baseball that year. Would you agree with that, Mr. Baseball aficionado? Okay. But come late August, September, Bruce Bochy was doing something right, because he had those guys playing out there in the field and at the plate when they were batting a little bit better than they thought they could. Well, you get all 9 of them to do that on a pretty regular basis, they steamrolled through the playoffs and won the World Series. Okay. Now, I still look back and say, hey, they won the World Series. Were they the best team in baseball? Probably not. Guess what? The best team rarely wins. Who was the best team in football this year? The two of the best teams are already gone. You know, Baltimore Ravens, hey, we're not going to hear from them anymore this season. And they cleaned house all season. They looked unstoppable. See, the best team is not who wins. Can we get our team to play a little bit better? Everybody pitch in just a little bit more than we think they can. So that's part of your role as the supervisor. Now, everybody functions in several systems. You have several. Let me show you. This is one of my systems, okay? This is me in the middle. That's my wife. This is our son and his wife and our 3 grandkids. That's our daughter. Here's where I work. And, oh, my wife's just down the hall. She works in here too. And that's my family. And that's her family. And there's where we go to church. If that's all you know about me, you know about quite a bit more than you did an hour ago, just by looking at that, okay? That's one way to look at it. Well, let's look at the Southern Baptist Convention. We've got the California Southern Baptists. We've got the WMU ladies in Alabama. Oh, this world thing, hey, we do this mission stuff, and we focus on them. We got the North American Mission Board. We got a bunch of seminaries, and Gateway's one representative of those. We have associations. All the old churches are involved in an association somewhere. And then we have all these churches. And oh yeah, we got that IMB that helps us keep our eye on the world. Now, if you're not a Southern Baptist and you saw that, you'd at least know that much. I mean, that's just a good little basic primary beginning understanding of who we are as a convention. But I could put any one of these up in the middle. I can put Gateway over here in the middle and crank down the lens one time. And now you start looking at the faculty and the staff and the students and the campuses. You get the idea? We all function within systems. When Jen and I got married, I got a pretty good deal. She brought to the table a good family. Her parents were charter members of 2 Southern Baptist churches in the Pacific Northwest. Her dad, Cecil Sims, one of the executive directors before Dr. Orridge, met her dad out in an apple orchard in 1954 and said, I understand you're a Southern Baptist from Arkansas. He said, yes, sir. He says, you're going to help me start a church. He didn't ask him. He told him. He said, you're going to help me start a church. And they did. And they did. Now, when my wife married me, though, oh, no. She got the short end of this stick. You just name a dysfunction, I'll tell you which family member it fits. I got them all covered. I got the whole gamut covered in my family. And so the reality is that, hey, we all function within systems and we still have to navigate those. Listen, your person you supervises functions and understands these systems, and you've got to help them kind of understand that. Well, every system has its own set of needs. Think about your family system. The one if you're single, it's just you. If you're married, it's you and your husband or wife. If you got kids, you got kids that are still at home. Every system, that family system has certain needs, and you set goals. You want your kids to grow up, and you want them to. My wife used to say about our son, I can't get that boy to take a bath. And I said, he's right on the verge of discovering girls, don't worry. All that's going to change here, and he's going to take 3 or 4 a day. Those of you who've raised boys, you know what I'm talking about. You've been there, you've done that. Okay. And so we didn't even have to worry about that. We knew the time was going to take care of it. Boundaries, you know, when they're little, when my son was born, we laid him on a little blanket in the middle of the living room and went about our day and did our business. And he laid right there, he didn't move. But all of a sudden we came in one day and he turned over. Well, how do you do that? We turned him back on his stomach and watched and waited for 30 minutes for him to do it again. And then all of a sudden he starts to wiggle and he starts to, scoot. And he crawls off that blanket, and then he starts to push up, and he gets over by the edge of the couch, and he pulls himself up. And now he's starting to toddle around, and all of a sudden we got stairs in our house. We got to put them gates up. Oh no, what's happening? We created a monster. Oh, now he's big enough, he can go out in the backyard. So I got to go check, is the backyard safe? Is it secure? Is it keep him inside the confines? Now he's big enough to open the gate. So now we got to go out in the front. We got to go now do okay, here comes a car. Stop, look, and listen. Be careful, never run out in front of a car. You do all that. You know the exercise. These boundaries, what do they keep doing? They keep expanding. And they're trusting you to help them. They word it that way. They don't say it that way, but they keep trusting you to take care of them. You know that's your responsibility. Until the day they ask for the car keys. Now who's trusting who? Well, do you realize that trust gets on the other foot now? Oh no, I've got to trust them. And moms and dads, do you remember that first night your child was out on their own? You stayed up all night. You didn't go to sleep, and you just waited, patiently. Now, as they learn to do it and you trust them, that trust builds. See, the trust is going the other direction now, building, but it's still there. Understanding, accountability, development, all of those are pieces of the puzzle that we've got to keep working together to make certain that we understand the system in which they're working. And everybody in ministry has their own system. Structure binds anxiety. Dr. McCarty taught that to me 40 years ago, and I didn't have a clue what he meant. Until he started to say, hey, listen, you put a little bit of structure in place. All it takes is a little bit. Now, from a Myers-Briggs standpoint, there are some of you that have lots of structure in your life. We call you're a J. And you got some P's in the room, and you ain't got any. Okay? Let's go ahead and call it what it is. You know who I'm talking to. And the reality is, J's, you can tone it down a bit. You only need a little. And J's, all you need is a little. So give us a little bit of support here. And when you put that little bit of structure in place, it's kind of, and I'm not an advocate of these. I've never done this to my animal, but it's kind of like those electric dog collars. You know what I'm talking about? You bury the thing on the perimeter, and if they get up to that edge, okay, don't go that way, and go over to this edge, and okay, now I got to stay in. Eventually they learn and they know. Now I don't like that kind of training, but it gives you the visual idea that, hey, the structure. Now I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry that he's going to stay in the yard because of that structure. Well, new people arrive. You're going to get a copy of some stuff that shares that. I don't have to go through all that because we've talked about most of the things on there of how to take care of a new person when they first arrive. Now, let me read this real quick and talk about this. Luke 9. 1 through 11, when Jesus had called the 12 together. I want you to look for those words. You've already heard called. Jesus had called the 12 together. He gave them power and authority to drive out all demons and cure diseases. And he sent them out to preach the kingdom of God and to heal sick. He told them, take nothing for the journey, no bag, no staff, no bread, no money, no extra tunic. Whatever house you enter, stay there until you leave that town. If people do not welcome you, shake the dust off your feet when you leave that town as a testimony against them. So they set out and they went from village to village, preaching the gospel and healing people everywhere. Now Herod the Tetrarch heard about what was going on and about all that, and he was perplexed because some were saying that John had been raised from the dead, others that Elijah had appeared, still others that one of the prophets of long ago had come back to life. But Herod said, I beheaded John. I took care of him. I cut his head off. Who then is this that I hear such things about? And he tried to see him. This is Herod. Hey, don't worry, he's going to come see you. Okay, remember that? We have to go later in the story. Verse 10, when the apostles returned, they reported to Jesus what they had done. And he took them with him, and they withdrew by themselves to a town called Bethsaida. But the crowds learned about it and followed. And this verse right here is inclusive. And I think it implies just as much to the disciples as it does to the crowd. It implies to both. He welcomed them, he spoke to them about the kingdom of God, and he healed those who needed healing. I promise you, when folks come off the field, a missionary comes off the field, a pastor comes back from a full day at the hospital, doing hospital visits, and he's big enough church and he's got all day. He's been in hospital after hospital room, visit after visit. Hey, emotionally, spiritually, and everything else, you get beat up. Missionaries come off the field for a furlough after 3 or 4 years on the field. They come back beat up. And we want somebody who's going to welcome us and speak to us and heal us a bit. And guess what? We got to take care of the people under our leadership. And the reality is, God didn't just willy-nilly this out and throw it out there. Jesus had a plan. And he cared for those disciples, and he was equipping them, and he was saying, do it like this. Here's the process. Here's how to take care of it. Now, I already read that. So Jesus was deliberate. I want you to look at these 4 words in red. Deliberate in equipping men and women to make a significant impact through the world in which they were called. Structure, step 1, structure provides the foundation which ministry is going to grow. Cooperation provides the understanding that ministry is conducted within the boundaries of a community of faith. Fellowship provides the understanding that ministry nourished in the depths of a personal relationship. And partnership provides the understanding that ministry might be taken to the next level, and that there would be no limitations on what could be accomplished. Jesus established and provided a supervisory system as he poured his life into the lives of his disciples and his supervisors. That's what we're called to do with the folks we care for. Okay? He poured into those disciples. That's who you're pouring into, anybody that serves under you, with you, alongside you. Now, this states, we enter this structure. Look at the 2 words for this square, task and task. We get into structure. What's the first thing they want to know? Where's the youth department? Where's the youth? Where are the kids? Who are they? What's the list? Show me the names, et cetera, et cetera. You want to know what it is about my job. That's the first thing. They want to know that. And hey, you just brought on a new youth pastor in your church. Guess what you want him to do? Work with the youth. So you agree. Let's talk about the structure. You're gonna basically tell them everything they need to know and how to do it. Then we're going to move up into cooperation. Now look, task and person, a little bit different idea now. So we get up to cooperation, and I've got the task out there. I've unloaded everything. You know what you're supposed to do. And now instead of, do you understand your job? If I ask anybody in the room, do you understand your job? What's your answer going to always be?
Have you explained it to me?
No. Yes, I've explained it to you. But what's your answer going to be if I say?
I understand.
You're going to say, I understand. And every one of you will say that too. How do I know? How do I know she really does understand? I don't. So I'm not going to ask her yes or no, do you understand your job? I'm never going to ask a yes or no question. I'm going to say, explain this to me, show me how to do this, where is that, what's this? And you may just be, repeating back what I've already told you, but at least I knew you were listening and you've now got it. See, I'm going to stay away from yes or no because, especially in a group, do you understand your job? Yeah, you do. Because you don't look dumb in front of the rest of these people. Yeah, I fully understand it. I got it. And inside you're saying, oh gosh. SK and Jesse, I mean, you guys are relatively new to the advanced program, correct?
Correct.
You guys, the imposter syndrome is how you operated in the early days. I'm going to act like I know. I don't know yet. I don't know what's going on yet. when our dear brother took over the CLD program, he had to play the imposter game for a while. I'm going to act like I know what I'm doing. You know, Don, help me here. What's this? What's this? You know, but eventually it comes. Eventually you're going to get it. Once we get the task in play, my attention now moves to here. And I'm focusing on how are you? Let's get to know each other. I want to make sure that the relational piece is in play. We're not going to talk about that. That's your job. You're dealing with that ministry. I want to get to know you. And so now, once we've done that, and now we move into fellowship. Look what's involved. No task in sight. No micromanager. I'm not going to come back and I'm not going to take over your ministry. I'm not taking the reins of it. No, it's still your ministry. I'm focusing on you. Hey, let's go to lunch. How's your family? You know, how you doing? You know, how are you? And sometimes we never get out of this one, and if we never get out of that one and everything is working and functioning, great. But I'm going to tell you a quick story. How much y'all stole 15 of my minutes? What time are we quitting here?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I was supposed to start at 3:45, and I didn't get started till 5 after 4.
You were just sitting there.
Yeah, let me tell you. Yeah, I would. No. I got orders from the boss to say I'll be right back. You know. So anyway, let me. I'm gonna tell this story. I don't know how many. I don't have my presenter, so I don't know where I'm at. So here's the deal. Those of you who are Southern Baptist, and you've been a Southern Baptist quite a while, and you remember the old days when we used to have the Commission magazine at the International Mission Board. It used to have all the stories in print from all over the world. Here's a story you've never read. That we opened Afghanistan with a journeyman. Okay, we opened Afghanistan with a journeyman. This guy had been on the field for 18 months. He learned the language. He looked the part. He culturally fit in. He was out and about all the time. He didn't stay around the office. He acclimated himself culturally. And they came to him and says, hey, listen, we have a need. We've got 3 missionary units in language school. They're going to finish in about 3 months. And we need you to go into Kabul, Afghanistan, and here's the list you need to get done in the next 3 months, getting ready for them to arrive. And then once they arrive, you then start with part B of the list, and you do that for your last 3 months before you come out. They said, now, you're going to be in there. Now, this was before cell phones, before that kind of communication. He said, all you will have is a satellite phone, and that's only for use in emergency only. You have the authority. Now, understand this part. I'm giving you the authority. You are making these decisions, and you're using your best judgment. Do you give that somebody that hasn't been tested? No. No way. But he'd already proven he could make good decisions, and they now were giving him the authority. And now they don't have somebody, a subordinate, they have a partner. They are elevating him up to, you are now a partner with us, and now we have person and task. And based on this relationship of personhood, we're going to give him new tasks to get this job done. And he gladly accepted, and the most thrilling days of his life. 2 years ago, was it 2? I don't know if it was 1 or 2 years ago, but one of our last mission conferences, maybe it was last year, I don't remember. We had 3 missionaries here telling about people movements on their field. One of those missionaries was one of those 3 units that came into Afghanistan all those years ago. And he and I were able to reconnect and talk about that, and the fact that hey, he set the stage for us to be able to just hit the ground running. And so that became so important. Well, let me see if I can figure out where I'm at, how much of this I'm going to, how much I'm going to skip. Because I go through those steps. I'll kind of talk you through those.
All right.
We're not going to go there. We're going to keep moving. Keep moving. Then here's the quiz I give you at the end. And I want you to think about your job, whatever your role is right now in ministry. Could you do your job if your life depended upon it? Can you? Everybody nod your head this way, because I know the answer is yes. You better feel that you can do your job right now. Okay? Well, if you said yes, and I knew all of you would, and I told you to anyway, I've got to determine, did you say yes out of willingness, which is attitude that says I want to do my job, or did you say yes out of ability, which says I can do my job? Well, I don't know. You said yes. Remember that yes and no, those kind of questions aren't helpful. Okay, they're not helpful. And so I don't know which of this is. So if you only got one of those, which would you want? You only get one. I'm not giving you both. Which one of those do you want?
Willingness.
Willingness. Everybody want willingness? Everybody wants willingness? Okay. It's brain surgery tomorrow on you. You want willingness?
I do.
Or would you like a little bit of competence? See, it makes a difference. It was a trick. It was a trick. I trapped you. You know. And so if I ask you which you always want both. You always want both. So anyway, if you don't get both, then hey, forget that one. Forget that one. You'll take a willing and not able because you can teach them and train them. But here's what you're looking for. You are looking for somebody who's willing and able. That's what you're always looking for. Okay. So be on the lookout for that. We're obviously I'm not going to get to finish this, and the big deal of the day, the fun part, you're not even going to get to see the fun stuff. There was a couple of fun things I was going to do, but let me tell you, the Gateway website. Let me tell you where to go. The Gateway website. Up at the top, there's 4 words. It says about, and then something, and then academics. That's the one you're looking for across the top. When you hover over it, a box drops down and it says theological field education. You want to click on that. That brings up the TFE page. That's my page. That's where we are. So you're going to go down and you're going to look at resources. Okay, click one of the resource buttons down there. And then on the next page, it's going to have field mentor resources. That's the supervisor. Field mentor resources. Under that, you're going to see the training link, and you're going to find a set of videos. And if you're wanting to hear more of this, see more of this, and expand what we've talked about a little bit today, you can go watch those. They've all been redone. They're now in about 9 or 10-minute segments. So you work through them much faster than the old days when they used to be 20 and 25 minutes each. That's all been pared down, and it's to the point. So I would encourage it. And you ever have questions about supervision, you email me, you give my email address, and you can do that, and I'll be glad to share back with you. Okay? Thank you for having me. Young man, come up to the table.